Hello students, KTHM College, Department of Political Science. So myself Chandanshay Vasudha welcome you all for the subject human values and human rights. We have done with our two units. We have started with our third unit. Then we have done some part of that. Now we are going in this lecture. We are going to finish off the remaining elements of the obstacle of human rights and Indian polity. So students, we will begin now. Okay. So students, the next one is the abuse of executive power, which in that we are going to study the corruption, nepotism and favoritism. So according to the philosophy advocated by, I will give you one simple statement which was given by King John of India in 1215 through the famous charter of Magna Carta. So he gave the statement that no man of what state or condition he be, he shall be put out of his land or tenements or taken or put to death without he be brought to answer by due process of law. So students, the king of England, King John in 1215, at that time he gave this statement. So what it means that rule of law constitute as a fundamental basic of governance. So this legal dictum of King John became the basis of rule of law or due process in the modern world. Due process of law means state has an obligation to respect the legal guaranteed rights of persons. Accordingly, an action compatibility by a state or a governmental authority have to have an effect by action of such agency of state either in a person or to his or her property as has a duty to issue a notice in detail and provide with reasonable opportunity to legally defending and claim of such person whose rights will be impugned. So when a state or any of its agency initiated action without adopting the above procedure, it will account to subversions of rule of law or abuse of executive powers. So all the international legal documents on human rights guarantee the right to fair hearing in all civil and criminal proceeding before and competing in independent and impartial tribunal or court established by law. So according to any action of a state without following the procedures of law or not improving or providing any opportunity to defend by oneself, the interest to harm the life and liberty of individual is an authoritative manner to rob the right or property referring or to the abuse of executive power. So students, this is about the abuse of executive power. So the Indian Constitution guaranteed human rights to be means populates through the fundamental rights, which are regarded as key provision to unshelf the right of individual. The Supreme Court of India in a Kanitinam of case explained the real philosophy of various rights and expanded the provisions of life and liberty by adding a number of rights to it. At the same time, the Constitution of India provides the remedial mechanism to prevent the abuse of state against the encroachment of rights by executive. So, due to the economic, social and cultural backwardness amongst the various sections of the polity, many a time the abuse of executive power by a section of a people in authority is to help the rich and to favor near and dear ones of the political bosses, and in turn to gain their personally and economically. Such deviations and misuse of powers is antithesis to to the realization of fundamental rights guaranteed to the people. So especially the rights to disadvantaged and the, we will say, the lower caste groups of the polity. Corruption and nepotism are one of the chief attributes to abuse to executive power in the several instances by a section of people in various organs of states. So this practices denies and disadvantaged people have an access to basic services such as health, education, land, food, shelter, and clothing. Means the very important things. Okay, so students, there are some we will say uh, issues. Means in order to counter such depraved practices, a number of strategies need to be adopted to bring in a transparent administrative system. So among the various strategies developed by the International Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development to tackle the issues of abuse of power for corrupt and nepotistic practices in Asia and Pacific are worthy considering. So according to them, International Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the first one is integrity and competency in public official. What it means? Now, integrity and competency in public official is the most important aspects. So, this will be achieved by adopting fair means of elections, selections and promotions of officials through transparency and fair means, adequate remunerations and other perks, introducing code of conduct at regular intervals, periodic reviews to remove conflict and interest in rules and regulations and procedures, enacting new legislations, repealing the old laws to oversee the non-interference politicians in functions of public officials. After that, the public management system. So the public management system is another effective tool. This will be adopted by introducing wide range of discernatory provisions, regular interactive section between public official and public, e-governance, rotation of officials and stipulating intervals, public accountability mechanism through periodic audits by independent agency and public spirit persons, and very much etc. After that, the third one is state's role in augmenting political system. Though this system, the state need to be fund political parties and election campaigns, it is necessary to introduce code of controls for politicians also, inducting their rules and responsibility to the public at large. So imparting the comparative administrative and legislative process and healthy process of administration and rule and regulation and intervals. And the last one is regulation of business organization. So this aims and regular period review of policies and various business houses and compulsory instances of adoption of ethical and moral practices. The regular audit of their roles and responsibility towards good practices and social reforms. So apart from this all, the various committees, commission appointed by the government from time to time, the numerous judgments and court highlighted that strict punishment including dismissal in necessary cases of eradicate corruption and nepotism among the people official. At the same time, adoption of simple and transparent procedures and delegations of power amongst various officials instead of concentrating on power among very few, imparting a good ethical and moral practices. So students, this is all about the abuse of executive power, means the corruption and nepotism or favoritism. Okay students. The next point we are going to see is human rights and good governance. It's very interesting topic. So the concept of good governance is increasingly used in a contemporary era due to a bad governance by nation state in the world. The term governance is not a new term to us. So it is in existence since olden days. Okay students, so governance generally means involving various players or agency in decision making process on any matter concerning formal or informal sectors. In decision-making process, government is nucleus to implementing various policies, laws, and regulation to render effective service to people and to work for the progress of the nation. So the term governance normally employed to refer a number of perspectives such as local governance, state governance, regional governance, and international governance. So the promotion and realization of human rights mainly depend upon the model of governance adopted by each country. However, the attributory exercise of executive power conferred upon various organs of a state not only brings in bad governance but also have an impact upon the realization of human rights of the populace of polity in general. Okay, so the bad governance or authoritarian rule, after that regional and international conflict, decolonization, the concentration of power amongst the few authorities of state, of the sections of the people in each society in promotions of right of social, economic, and cultural disadvantages to people rights. There are many things that led for the evolution of concept of good governance. Means to promote and protect the protection of human rights, it is very important. So students, according to the resolution 2000 of the UN Human Rights Council of chief attributes of good governance and transparency, responsibility, accountability, participation, and responsiveness to needs of the public. So according to United Nations Economic and Social Commission for the Asian Pacific, good governance has 8 chief attributes. So the 8 chief attributes are: first one is participation. So participation of people at various level of state including in governance is key element of realization of good governance. So the government of the expectation of the people in governance, it may be either through representative manner or through any other means. So the main aspects is the guarantee of human right. That's all. After that, rule of law. Rule of law means fair implementation of legal rules and procedure with a remedial mechanism without any partiality. It also ensures the full protection of human rights. After that, effective and efficiency. Okay students, the Institute of State needs to efficient to meet the requirements of people and procedures, results that need to meet the expectations of the people. It also implies the efficient use of resource in sustainable perspective. After that, equitable and inclusive. So the well-being of the society depends upon the equitable status for all its population. In order to have such an equitable status, the social, economic, and other disadvantaged groups of the people need to be provided with the opportunity to take part in activities of society in equal manner. After that, it is responsiveness. All the institutes need to be served with a time frame with the maximum result orientation. That's all. After that, it should be transparency. The decision taken and their enforcement need to be according to the legal rules and regulation. It also includes people need to have an information free society with a responsive free media and to have an access and decision making. After that, accountability. So accountability is a holistic concept where in all the stakeholders, which means the public, the private and civil society organization, all of them together accountable to the society for their acts. Okay, and to achieve the accountability, one of the basic feature of it is rule of law need to be adherent without any deviation, without any corruption, without any nepotism or favoritism. After that, the last one is consensus oriented. So in the society there are number of factors, all of them need to be evolved good strategies, the consensus to achieve them, keeping the community interests at par. At the same time, long-term objective perspective is needed for sustainable human development. How to achieve the goals of such development need to be planned in a strategic perspective to to counter the problems with the progressive approach. So human rights and good governance has a number of links as they are mutually reinforcing each other. Both of them together indicate a number of standards which reforms need to adopt. They jointly promote mainly strengthening of institutes, democratic participation of after the law, effective service delivery mechanism, inculcating anti-corruption and non-nepotism practices in government. So the Union Declaration of Human Rights through Article 21 and 28 advocates the concept of good governance at all levels, including the international participation. So the convenience of civil and political rights, economic, social and cultural rights, and a number of documents advocated for the promotion of human rights which help to promote the concept of good governance. So the goals that are engrossed are the concept of good governance, which is the key realization of human rights. So the Constitution of India also advocates the view of UN in promotion of human rights and good governance. So the government after independence introduce a number of schemes, other plans, and eradicate poverty and to bring in a disadvantaged section of people into a mainstream activities of the society. So, however, the illiteracy or poverty, unemployment, corruption, nepotism practices of a section of people, criminalization of the politics, and a number of other status have a left of bolt on the governance of the country. Though the government introduced right to information, right to education, and other and many things, it is the duty of the state to include civil society in decision making process and introducing a specific program with time frame in reduce poverty and malnutrition in child development of status of women, especially the economic settlements, evolving strategies and to reduce pendency and in judiciary's establishment of human rights courts and many more. So this step will definitely increase the potential to India as a vibrant democracy. Okay, students. So, students, this is all about the obstacles which human rights and Indian polity face. So, students, we have done with our third unit, which is obstacles to human rights and human rights and Indian polity. Thank you, students.